everyone. This is Tracey Brock from Real 101, and I'm here with Joseph Woodbury, the CEO and co-founder of Neighbor.com. Welcome, Joseph.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It's exciting to have you on the show. Neighbor.com, if you could just give us a little idea of what you guys do and how long you've been in business, that would be great.
Yeah, so Neighbor.com, we're an online marketplace. It's very similar to an Airbnb or an Uber, but we help people rent out space on their property to people that need to store vehicles or items. We're in all 50 states at this point, and basically a passive income platform.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. So basically, if we look at the big picture, what is full property monetization, and why do you think more real estate investors need to get involved in this?
Well, I think increasingly as real estate's gotten more and more crowded, you can't just do the same playbook where you dedicate a property to just one asset class. We're seeing a lot more real estate investors think about a property and think, how are all the ways that I can make money from this property? And that's this concept of full property monetization. Ultimately, the individuals, the portfolios, the investors that have the highest returns are those that are really investing in making each square foot count on the property.
So that's kind of what inspired you to start Neighbor.com, I guess, was in the big picture. So when did you realize that the average homeowner or the average property owner, I guess, was leaving money on the table?
Yeah, I mean, so the storage industry that we're disrupting, it's a $500 billion industry.
Wow.
Some fun facts. We've now built in America more storage facilities, like storage locations, than we have Starbucks, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, Wendy's, Burger King's, Walmart's, Costco's, and Home Depot's combined. So it's this massive, massive industry that's largely just been out of reach for your typical real estate investor. And where a lot of asset classes are struggling, office is having a difficult time right now with a lot of remote work, and even retail from time to time with e-commerce has had difficulties. What if we could take this big industry that just is growing every year, and there's $5 billion worth of capital going into new growth every year in this industry, and we could give everyone access to it so they could have similar cash flows across whatever their properties were. So we realized this actually when we had the need ourselves. My co-founder, Preston, was looking to get a storage unit and couldn't find one that was in the right price range or close enough to him. So he ended up storing with a friend in his garage, and that's when it just hit him. He was like, wait, this was so good of an experience. I got to store my items in a nice, secure neighborhood, not in one of those industrially zoned areas. Plus, I saved a ton of money. There's got to be empty space everywhere in the country, in small businesses, in gyms, in nail salons, in apartment complexes, in homes. There's just so much space out there. Why are we building new space if we've got all the space built already?
So why does Neighbor.com work? How is it different from other models and, other Airbnbs or additional dwelling units? How is it different?
Yeah, so I think the main difference that our users often say about our platform is just how passive it is. A lot of these marketplaces, if you're going to go drive for Uber or DoorDash or Instacart, that's a job. I mean, in order to earn any money, you have to go drive around. You're almost earning an hourly wage. Even Airbnb, it's constant customer turnover. The person stays for 2 days, and then you have to clean up after them, and then you get another customer 2 days later. And so there's very hands-on management to the point where many investors in an Airbnb, they hire a management company just to operate it. Neighbor, I think, is the first platform where, because it's storage, someone will come store their boat or their RV or their camper trailer or their items on your property, and maybe they come and visit every 3 months, but that reservation lasts for years, and you're getting a direct deposit. It's the same amount every month. It's very predictable for doing nothing. I mean, I actually rent out personally. I bought a home that has an RV pad on the side. I don't own an RV, so I'm never going to use it. I rent that out. I have not spent any time on this for 9 months.
Wow.
He just texts me and says, I'm going to come by and pick it up today. I don't have to do anything. I just
Mhm.
like his text. And yet it's paying my utility bill every month. Like neighbor is literally paying my utilities at my home. And that's just a small property. We have individuals that they get really into this. We've got a guy up in Oregon that we were just talking to. He's kind of a first time real estate investor. Like he's just getting into this. He earned $75,000 on neighbor last year. So
Wow.
like you can go all in and earn pretty meaningful capital.
Yeah, that is very meaningful for sure. So can you walk me through a typical experience or how something would generate income with Neighbor?
Yeah. So first, you just go to our website, neighbor.com/host, or if you have a large plot of land, you can actually go to neighbor.com/myproperty. And we're going to walk you through, you're going to tell us what the address is, what type of property is it? Is it a garage? Is it a large plot of land? Is it a small business? And we're going to ask you some questions about it. It'll take about 10 minutes to complete our questionnaire. Then we will help you price the unit. You're welcome to price it however you'd like. It's up to you. You can price it, but we will provide you a lot of guidance on that because being in every city in all 50 states, we kind of know what market rents are. And you can actually opt into our smart pricing system where if you want, you can just hand over the controls to us and we'll just make sure you're priced at whatever the best thing is seasonally during the year to rent your unit at or your units. And then it gets published and we bring you a renter. Our goal is to enable you to start a business. I mean, you're starting a storage business without having to do all the work to start a business. So we take care of, we do the customer support. We provide you with a $1 million business liability guarantee. We provide them with item protection up to $50,000. We are the ones who help move them out when it's time to go, et cetera, et cetera. The goal is you just provide the space and we take it from there.
Great. Most typically investors are focused on the rate of return, like vacancy rates, rental income. How does Neighbor help boost returns in a completely different way?
I'll use some numbers here. If you were to buy a townhome in Utah, that maybe runs you $500,000 purchase price. And you might earn $2,000, maybe $2,500 in monthly rents. Let's say you're earning $2,300 in monthly rent, and your mortgage on that property is about $2,000. So on a net basis, you're earning $300 in net cash each month. We've had individuals with exactly the property that I'm talking about. They add Neighbor. Now they're earning an additional $300 a month on that property with no additional costs. And so they just doubled their net cash on a monthly basis. Sometimes they have more property adjacent to it. We had a guy actually here in Utah where we're located. It had a large lot kind of behind. It was actually a fairly small rental property. He increased his cash on cash on the property from 11 or 12% to something like 70% because he was able to store multiple vehicles on the lot behind it. We had a guy that was just getting into real estate investing in Seattle, actually worked for Amazon. He's since been able to quit his job at Amazon because he was able to layer on Neighbor across all of the rental properties he already had. And that helped boost his cash flow enough to where it made sense he could step away from his job.
That seems like a very lucrative business that you've got going with for other people too, right? You've mentioned a lot of different locations and different examples of where people can rent, but what would you say was your most unique spot that you've rented or the best success story you've had so far?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's interesting how it varies by market. So we have individuals in downtown Manhattan, New York City, and spaces at such a premium there. You can rent out a parking spot, depending on the location, for $400 or $500, $600 a month. And a lot of times it's these, even elevated garages where there's an elevator for the car, very unique type of space. Even in New York, spaces at such a premium, we've had individuals rent out like a closet in their home or even like space underneath their bed to store boxes, and people rent it. On the flip side, we have $20 billion REITs, multifamily REITs and office REITs and retail REITs that layer us on across their portfolio. So maybe they own malls across the country and they have suites that don't get rented. They'll rent those out for storage, or they'll rent their parking lot out to store large amounts of vehicles, and we can earn them, millions of dollars across their portfolio. Or they run an apartment complex and they actually build storage lockers for the tenants as an amenity, but the tenants never use those storage lockers.
Right.
And so they'll just list those on our platform and we'll fill those out for them. Even sometimes the office building is doing quite well. This isn't often the case. A lot of times people are 60, 70% occupied, but some of these are 100% occupied, and yet their actual daily foot traffic is lower because there's some sort of hybrid work schedule or remote work schedule. A lot of people aren't coming into the office. So they've got this 5-story parking garage or 3-story parking garage, and the top floor never has anyone in it. So we take the top floor and we rent it out for vehicle storage. We had a gym in LA that's earning $50,000 a year renting out space around their gym. Like, we pay basically the lease payment on the gym. And so then they get to go run this successful like kickboxing gym. So really cool stuff, very unique spaces. Like, that's this thing, like most Airbnbs, they kind of need to look a certain way. If you rent out a Turo car, there's a set number of cars you can rent out. But on Neighbor, it's just all about space. So this could be any extra space you have. We can find the right price for it and rent it out.
Okay, so I guess this question might be a little bit difficult to answer just only because of the extent of the possibilities. But what could the average person expect to earn from Neighbor.com?
Yeah, as you mentioned, it very much depends on the property type and the market. So I'll give a few different examples. So like, if you're in Utah and you're just a homeowner and you just have some space in and around your home, you're going to earn somewhere between, $1,000 to $3,000 a year, roughly. Whereas, if you're in New York and you have a parking space, you may earn, call it, $5,000 a year. As an individual homeowner.
Right.
If you own a large plot of land, then typically you're earning somewhere from $20,000 to $100,000 a year on our platform across the country, depending on the size of the plot of land. Like, we have a middle school teacher on our platform, happens to have a large plot of land next to her home, and she's earning about $35,000 a year on the platform. So, pretty meaningful amount of income.
Well, you seem to have a very broad range of clientele, from homeowners to rates. What is the common thread between all of your clients?
Hands down, the common thread is just seeking passive income. And these are individuals, by and large. Like, if you put them all in a room and said, what's similar about these people? They're individuals that want something that can fund like other activities in their life. They want to be able to, again, quit their job at Amazon or something like that. And they've gotten exposure to real estate often, because real estate can be one of the more passive types of income, but they're looking for something even more passive than that. They're just looking for yield on assets.
So what's your main words of advice for somebody starting or wanting to start to do this program, especially if you're more risk adverse and you don't really, or maybe even have just only a short period of time, maybe you only have 6 months and then the space will be used again. So how do you get started?
I just go back to that. There's a concept that we've talked about. There's one-way doors in life and there's two-way doors in life. And one-way doors you need to be really cautious about because you can go through that door, but you can't come back out. And these are things like, if you decide to quit your job, you may not be able to go back to that. It's kind of a one-way door. Right. And so be very analytical and very risk on about one-way doors. And then there's two-way doors where you can go through that door and you come right back out. And so again, I'd go back to this advice of Neighbor's a month-to-month thing. It's a two-way door. Try it out. Have the experience. It turns out that our users, even when they just try it out at the residential level, like the homeowner level, it's the sort of thing where you just can't stop. It's so easy and it's so passive. If anything, people start to expand and invest. We had a woman in Hawaii. She started small with us, and she just kept expanding her property. Now she's doing $120,000 a year with us because she just keeps going, right? And so give yourself that opportunity. And if it's not for you, you can back out pretty quickly. It's not like purchasing an Airbnb where you've made this big upfront investment. And if it doesn't work out, you're going to sell that property for a loss because you're not able to earn the short-term rental gains on this. This is something you can monetize property you've already got.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy too, Ador. I like that. So how does neighbor.com compare to traditional investment strategies with real estate?
I mean, you can use very similar metrics to analyze it. And in fact, our partners do from the smallest level where small real estate investors that own rental properties, they're using us. They're saying, okay, what does this do to my cash on cash? What does this do to my yield on asset? Whereas the larger partners, these big REITs, they're saying, okay, what does this do to my net operating income? What does this do to my NOI? And can I apply a cap rate to that? So if neighbor brings me, $50,000 in monthly income to a property, annual NOI to a property at a 6 cap, what does that do to my valuation? It's increasing the valuation of my property from somewhere between $500,000 to $1 million on that property. So whatever your real estate asset class is, I would measure it on the exact same metrics that you measure your asset on. For the residential owners, they're just thinking about this on cash in their bank account, right? They don't have some fancy real estate metric. They're just thinking, okay, what's my monthly income? What are my monthly expenses? Some of them set up an extra bank account that's like their vacation bank account. And neighbor's the only thing that goes into that bank account. And every single time they hit $2,000, they spend it, it goes to zero, and neighbor fills it back up again. And we pay for a $2,000 vacation for them, once or twice a year. So just use the metrics you're comfortable with.
So what would you say is the most common or most listed space on neighbor.com?
I'll give you two. So for these small kind of residential homeowners, it's definitely going to be a garage. For our larger, what we would call power hosts that are earning in the 6 figures of income, 5-6 figures of income, it's definitely going to be a large lot, a parking lot or an unpaved lot. So those are the two most common.
And they tend to be the most profitable as well?
Those large lots, especially when they're, have a proximity to some sort of neighborhood area where there's a lot of people that have purchased RVs or boats and they need a place to put them because with their HOA, you can't put them in their HOA. Those are extremely profitable. I mean, for the exact same amount of money, it costs you $500,000 to buy a townhome that yields you 20, 30K in rents. You could spend $500,000 on a 1 to 2 acre lot that's going to earn you $100,000 in monthly rents. So we're talking like 3x the earnings. So a very, very high return on investment, those lots.
That was so much great information, Joseph. I really liked it. I'm sure that there's got to be even more possibilities out there that maybe even you guys haven't thought about. When you said under the bed, I couldn't imagine renting the under my bed. I have a bed. I would rent my bed underneath my bed for sure. So thank you very much. I encourage everybody to follow Joseph and neighbor.com on the various socials. We will put that up on our podcast so everybody can see them. Obviously, thank you so much, Joseph, for coming out today and for sharing all this information with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Good. I really appreciate you coming down. Again, I'm Tracey Brock. I'm a mortgage broker with the Real 101 show. You are welcome to follow us always on our socials, Real 101, Real-101. And we look forward to the next time. So thank you, everyone, for watching. And again, thank you, Joseph. Have a great day.